All right, next up, I need to go back a couple of steps and I'm sorry, forward a couple steps and glue these parts on, and then I'll have to do the decals, then I can do some weathering. So first thing I will do is this side here. Now, some of you might see it, but this is kind of rough right here, and I really should have sanded it some more before I did the paint, but I didn't, so I'm just gonna have to rely on it not being able to be seen very well. So you can think I'm a chud if you want, but that's the way it goes sometimes. So first up, I'm going to glue this in part right here, which is part number D48. But before I do that, I'm going to scrape the cement off, or the paint off where it needs to be cemented, because I like a clean surface. For my parts. So this one here, quick test fit, and that looks pretty good. Okay, so I will use this cement here. I'm going to trim this part a little bit. Right here, whoops. Because the paint buildup, it's not sitting quite as flat as I want it to. Yeah, it's better. And because I can reach it from the bottom, I will use this here. Okay, then I need to glue, I think this is the trim tab wheel here. Of course it could be, whatever it is, that's what I'm gluing next. Okay, so for that one, I think I'm going to use a little dab of the old super glue. For that, I'll use and this is the medium. Just like that there. And that takes care of all the parts that need to be gluing on that side. So the next thing I'll have to do is do the one of the decals, but we'll do that in a minute. I think while I have this out, I'm going to go ahead and scrape the cement off on the contact points. for whenever I glue this stuff together. So that should be good. All right. So next, on this side, I need to glue this into place. So this one's going to be I'll do to be extra thin here. And super glue on the other end. So let me get that ready. Whoa. Okay. So let's put that there. That there. Got that. So while that is drying, let's take a look. How all this stuff fits together. Looks pretty good. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to paint the detail parts. So let's take a look here. Let's see. So these parts here, here, and the ends of this hose are painted black. So let me get my black out. Whoa. Well, that was a bit much. My ratty old paintbrush. So once I get this painted, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get out some reference photos in a book I've got and see what other colors should be on this, because I'm sure it's not just all black. and see what else needs to be painted black in here. But for now, I'll just do these that I know for sure. Like this. And I could have painted these before I glued them in. I probably should have, but I didn't, so I'm going to have to exercise some basic painting skills here. All right, so there's that. So we'll take a look and see what else needs to be painted. Okay, the next part I want to do before I paint the details on the cockpit walls is I need to do the decals. So I'm going to use the kit decals for the cockpit interior, well, as opposed to the cockpit exterior. That made a lot of sense. So here's what I'm using. So to actually set the decal in place, I'm using Tester's decal set. And then to get them to settle in really good, if there's detail that it needs to mold around, I'm using Solva set. I've also got a decal brush here. I've got labeled decals that I use just for using the decal set solution and then to position them in place, as well as a toothpick that's been smoothed off on the end. So we'll start with the first decal, which is decal number 6, way over here, which is decal number 6 right there, that little tiny job. So first I'll cut it out. Depending on the decal, sometimes you want to cut it as close as possible to the actual decal itself. I'm really going to try and keep this to where you guys can see it. You want to cut as close as you can, but some decals are printed in such a way that there's not much carrier film, so it's not that big a deal. Now for decals, I like to use these spring-loaded tweezers. That way I don't have to worry about it falling off. So we'll put that in there to soak for a second. And this particular decal is going to be going right here. So hopefully you'll be able to see me putting it in place. Should be okay. Okay, so we got that. Let's see if it is. I'll let that soak for a minute. Okay, it's loose now, so I'll take just a little bit of the decal setting solution and put it on there. Now, for those of you that like a nice smooth surface for your decals, a lot of people like to put a gloss coat. It's not necessarily necessary, if that makes sense, but by doing my paint with a gloss in the actual paint itself, it eliminates the need for that. So that way you kind of get the best of both worlds. So what I'm going to do is I've got it in place here. I'm going to make sure it's lined up. And then I'm going to use a cotton swab or Q-tip, depending on what part of the world you come from, to squish out any excess moisture. All right, so the next decal or decal, depending on what part of the world you come from, is number 3, which is this one right here. So cut that one off. Now again, for those of you who might be watching this thinking, seriously, we got to go through all of this, each individual decal? Well, pretty much, because that's what I said I would do on this one. However, in the very near future, I'll be doing more of a general update for those who don't want to watch every single step of the build. So I'll be doing, you know, more of a, you know, a recap of the steps I've done so far and any notations that I've made of things to look out for, or things that might be helpful in assembling this kit. Okay, now this one's ready to go, and this is the one that goes right here. So let's get the old decal setting solution. Another thing that's kind of nice about this not being perfectly glossy is you don't have to worry about the decal or the decal solution like beating up due to surface tension. It lays down a lot better because there's still just a little bit of flatness to it, so it doesn't act weird. So let's get this one positioned like that. Take the old handy dandy Q-tip. Do that. Okay, so that is the 2 decals for that panel. So what I'm going to do is get my solva set, and again, this is the stuff I use, so you know, use whatever you have handy, whatever you can get a hold of. I'm not sure everybody can get solva set in the world. If you can, I'd recommend giving it a try because it does work really well. Now, one thing to remember about setting solutions, there's Solvaset, Solvasol, or something like that. There's another brand. The one solution, now this is supposed to be an actual setting solution, it's just not very powerful, so that's why I use it like I do. But even if I didn't use that, I would still use that on top. But what this does here is it helps set the decal over surface detail, and it'll become really apparent whenever I do the instrument panel. So you don't want to, after you put this stuff on, don't touch it. No matter what happens, no matter how it looks, don't touch it, because you'll just destroy your decal. It'll wrinkle up, it'll look hideous, and you'll wonder, what have I done to my model? But when it dries and it cures, it'll look perfect. So you've seen how I do that. So for the other side, I'm just going to do that off camera, and then we'll come back and do the instrument panel. Okay, so I got all the decals done on that side of the fuselage. So the next thing I'm going to do is the instrument panel. So hopefully, let me see if I can scoot this to where it'll be easier to see what I'm doing as I do it. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take some poster tack here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick this down to give me a good, so it's not just moving around. Okay, so then hopefully I won't bump this thing as I'm putting this on. Cut out the decal like before. And I'm going to give myself some room to work. Now, I've done decals on instrument panels before, and they've turned out really, really good. So I'm hoping that I can do the same. Now, I just noticed something that's kind of cool about these decals. Or maybe it's an Airfix thing, I don't know, but they've got marked common. So all of these decals here would be common regardless of what version you're doing of the stuff in the kit. Then you would pick either this set or this set for whatever particular aircraft you want to do. So that's kind of cool. Makes it a little easier for knowing what decals you need to do. So I'm going to let that decal soak a little bit, and then we'll come back and stick it on here. Okay, the decal's loose, so I'm going to get rid of any excess water that's on here. I'm going to take my setting solution here, brush it on. Like that, and then carefully put it in place. Now this can be a little, no, that looks pretty lined up. You want to make sure you get it lined up as close as you can on those dials and everything, so it will. Sorry if the camera's shaking, it's shaking my whole desk. Oh my goodness. Okay. That looks pretty good. So what I'm going to do, all right, so now this is where you have to trust your decal setting solution, and this may take a couple of applications, so don't get all crazy. So we'll put that on there like that and let it dry up and see what we got.